Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 13th of October. It's the morning after the debacle before. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Stevie Clifford. Good to have you on, Stevie. I'm sure you've had better nights at Ibrox than what you witnessed last night.
Yeah, good morning, Derek. Very painful and very sobering result, which should have ramifications for everyone involved.
Yeah, we'll touch on that shortly. We'll talk about the game itself, of course. If you're living on the moon, folks, Rangers defeated by 7-1 at Ibrox last night by Liverpool. All started so well. Scott Arfield opening the scoring before Rangers were the masters of their own downfall, conceding a goal courtesy of a Firmino header from a set piece from a corner. Half-time came and went. Connor Goldson, in fact, went off injured, which is a big worry, seen on crutches at the end of the game. Leon King came on for him. Ryan Jack would go off injured in the second half, but Rangers capitulated, losing 6 goals in that second half, showing Mo Salah with the fastest hat-trick in Champions League history. And there was goals for Nunez also, and Harvey Elliott as well. Stevie, you were at Ibrox last night. I've got to say it looked rocking when Scott Arfield stuck that ball away. Great move from Rangers. I felt the team was the right team. And the first half, you must have been thinking at half-time, they've give a good account of themselves, come out and have another go in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, said last night, I agree with the selection that Giovanni Van Bronckhorst picked. Connor Goldson's injury is obviously a massive moment, Derek, because we know what happened next, as was subsequently Ryan Jack's injury. First half, no complaints about how they went about their business. Lost a poor goal. When somebody of Firmino's quality, you don't match him up properly, that's going to happen. But even in transition, didn't look after the ball well enough. Having watched the B game yesterday, there was a similarities about where we tried to play short passing. When they pressed, it didn't use the width properly either. And we can sit here and it sounds easy, but the warning signs were there. But the first half, Derek, even the positives, we scored a really good team goal and stuff. I don't feel like it has any subsequence of what we should really be discussing.
Yeah. It was a capitulation, as I mentioned, Stevie, in that second half. I'd like to say we never seen it coming, but it's an issue. It's happened before. We've seen it at places like Parkhead, of course, Amsterdam, and elsewhere. I think Belgium against Union Saint-Gilloise, albeit Rangers recovered well at Ibrox. But that's another one. I watched Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's press conference after the game. He posed a number of good questions towards him, Stevie. The supporters waking up this morning, a lot of them want a managerial change. I can understand where they're coming from. Where do you stand on that at the moment? Are we into that discussion now where we're thinking about potential replacements in charge of the club?
Yeah, we should be. Don't take any great pride in saying this. I'm actually really disappointed. I like Van Bronckhorst. I've said it repeatedly that I like Van Bronckhorst, but for me, he's not up to being Rangers manager. And I'll try and give context to this. I sat here on Tuesday and said that this team trajectory of them were going the right way. We were starting to maybe get our swagger back a bit and play a bit better, etc. However, this is the 6th time that Rangers have capitulated under Van Bronckhorst. During that time, there's been 2 3-0s, 2 4-0s, and last night's 7-1. It's completely unacceptable for any Rangers team to concede that amount of goals. But it's the manner of the performance which is the worst. To put that, to try and reason with people, and try and understand where I'm coming from when we say that. I'm talking about players legitimately giving up right in front of your eyes, Derek, which is the worst thing you can ever say.
Yeah.
They're so soft-centered, they're so weak mentally and also in performance that when the going gets tough, at 3-1 down, the decision to swap the front line was absolutely baffling when at that point, given the way that the game was clearly going and the substitutions that Liverpool were making or about to make at that point, I can't quite remember, the reasonable thing would be to try and tighten up and shore this up, because we're not getting back into the game at 3-1. We all know that. They're an elite side. But to make those substitutions was far too big a gamble, which makes me question not only Van Bronckhorst, but what he was doing in that kind of period. But this isn't a one-off. That's a worrying thing. I said to the manager last night, this is my concern, that this isn't the first time we saw this. If it was the first time we'd saw this, you could be really angry and put it down to being, a capitulation. But this side has went to Parkhead twice and done the exact same thing. This side has went to Amsterdam and given up right in front of our eyes. And Union was just as bad. 2 Liverpool performances. And I got into a lot of stick last week for saying that the only difference between Anfield last week and Amsterdam and things was Alan McGregor keeping that scoreline down. The truth is that performance and tackle and conviction and all the things we want to see was just as bad. When they needed them last night, when the going got tough, they were nowhere to be seen. And Van Bronckhorst sat on the bench not knowing what to do. I asked him last night if he was worried. He said, of course he was worried. I asked him how he was going to fix it. And there was for the first time last night, I felt sorry for Van Bronckhorst on a human level, from the point of view that he looked completely shell-shocked.
Yeah.
We all were. He looked emotional. He looked shell-shocked. And sometimes, Derek, I've been quite hard with Van Bronckhorst. I think everybody knows that I try and ask the questions that I think people want. And I'm a 25-year season ticket holder. I feel like I've got a grasp of where we are as a support. I'm not always right, but I try and ask what people want. And I've been quite harsh on him, and he'll nip back at me, Van Bronckhorst. He's been quite stern. We laugh about it. He's had a wee pop back. Last night he was very resigned. It was almost as if he was saying, yeah, you're right in what you're saying. Yeah, people want to watch that press conference, they can watch it. But it's the same things, Derek, all the time.
Yeah.
Don't look after the ball. There's no fight. There's no desire. There's no leadership anywhere on that pitch. Real leaders would be in there at 3-1, 4-1 saying, shut up shop, get tight, foul, break up the game, clear your lines, do everything. But this Rangers team has nothing about it. And when people question their heart and their desire, you cannot defend it. It's all lovely when you're winning 2-3-0, St Mirren, etc., and it's going well, absolutely. But see, when the going gets tough, this club, this team in the last 6 months under this manager has demonstrated every time that they will simply down tools and watch it happen rather than try and prevent it.
Yeah, right. So many.
I'm sorry, Derek.
No.
It's very damning, but that's how I feel about it. It's now at the end of the road, and no matter which way you look at it, you cannot have a manager that continues to preside over this.
Yeah, listen, Stevie, you're not alone. There's many supporters and a lot of the comments coming in agreeing with your line of thinking. I want to touch on a couple of them, if I may. This Kookaburra says that any news on Goldson without him, the wheels came off completely. Now, what was Van Bronckhorst said that it doesn't look good. Him and Jack last night, I think, Stevie. I think the debate whether Connor Goldson's importance to the team was well and truly shelved last night. And that's no disrespect to Leon King, but Connor Goldson is the glue that keeps that defence together. I thought he had the measure of Nunez before he went off. And he is going to be a massive loss for Rangers. They've now got 2 fit centre halves, Stevie. How big a concern is that?
Yeah, it goes back to the wider issue, which we'll come to in a wee bit regarding recruitment and what happened in the summer and where we've been heading. But it's a hammer blow. I've often said that Connor Goldson is the rock which this team is kind of been built around. And, he then subsequently has a mistake and people throw it back in your face and stuff like that. And he does at times. Connor Goldson is prone to the odd error, but what he gives you is unbelievable. When he went off last night, it collapsed defensively. No disrespect to Leon King. I will not criticise a young lad getting thrown in. There's other people that I would like to speak about, but not Leon King. I thought Ben Davies was doing absolutely fine last night as well. I thought Connor was having an excellent game, and his form has actually really improved since Ben Davies has come in. But it looked like a thigh issue to me, Derek. He was holding his thigh. He was trying to stretch it out. It looks like he almost jarred his leg, if that makes sense. He overstretched it. And trying to get back and stop Núñez, which he did. But it's a hammer blow. Personally, at the time, I thought James Sands was the better option. And that's not me just saying that to try and justify. I'm not blaming Leon King or that. I just think that maybe James Sands' experience would have been the better option at the time. Great faith by Van Bronckhorst to put him in, but we're certainly in almost a really disastrous position now where, one more bad injury, perhaps Ben Davies or etc. If one of them, then we're really, really in the mire. So, and don't forget, we've got to go to Napoli and Ajax have got to come here as well. So, it's a really difficult position to be in.
Yeah, it certainly is. Right, I'll get to a few of the comments that are coming in. Loads of you getting in touch. Thanks as ever for your interaction. Alan McConnell says, sounds mental to say, but I thought Davis was brilliant up to a point. I think first half I thought he was good, looked composed and measured, but you've seen that when Goldson departed, and it wasn't his fault. I think it was wave after wave of attack from Liverpool in that second half, and the midfield was non-existent. We can talk about players till we're blue in the face, Stevie. I think Davis was probably the one player that had maybe pass marks over the course of the game, you could say. That aside, the likes of Kent, again, I've seen a lot of comments saying that he shouldn't play for the club again. Another one where how many chances is this guy going to get before he gets dropped for someone else? Another opportunity last night to show what he can do and stand up and be counted, and I don't think he did so. Was there any other players you felt that deserved it anyway? A bit of praise at all?
No.
Don't
praise any of them. We've just been conceded 7 at home. Yeah. It's the same group of players that in 6 months has capitulated 6 times. I'm in no mood to sit here and say he maybe gets pass marks, blah, blah, blah. I'm not prepared to be as critical of some of them as I am of others.
Yeah.
But that's a different question and probably will lead to a more extensive answer. But in terms of giving any of them pass marks last night, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. That's not a performance in any way, collectively or individually, that's good enough for Rangers Football Club.
Yeah, and as Brian Howe quite rightly puts, whole team were a disgrace in that second half. It's no disgrace losing to Liverpool, Stevie. We've seen them put a number of goals past teams. They lost 7 goals to Aston Villa a couple of seasons ago. These freak results can happen, but what we're getting at is it's not necessarily the scoreline as such. It's evident looking like giving up that was clear to see from all, and it's not just the first time. It is an issue now. In fact, we talked about the manager there. The club, in the grand scheme of things, have qualified for the Champions League. I think that was a massive aim for them at the start of the season. They did so, and at this point in time, they sit 2 points behind Celtic. They're in a close-run title race. Largely, you could say thanks to St Mirren for that. I don't see a managerial change at this point. I've got to admit. I think Fir Park is massive. He has to get a result at Fir Park, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He has to win all the games. But the issue is last night, and we both know that when the support turn, as they have completely, the reaction last night and the manner of what happened spoke volumes. Obviously, Derek, maybe not, but those who know will know the reaction at the end of the match, the shouts, the comments, Van Bronckhorst, etc. that when that happens, you might be able to pacify, with a couple of good domestic results, but it'll come to Napoli again. The same thing will happen. The same reaction will happen. We'll maybe draw a game at some point. The same reaction has happened because the faith and the trust, not only in the team but in the management and beyond the executive board, etc., is gone at the club. It's not a good place to be in. You got to remember as well, Derek, that this football club doesn't get beaten, don't concede 7 goals. We don't lose halves 6-0.
No.
We cannot allow that to go unchecked. And there has to be ramifications for that. It doesn't give me any pride sitting here saying about Van Bronckhorst, about Ross Wilson, etc., but there has to be an accountability. This is not a one-off. This is not an overreaction to one performance. This is now a sequence which, if they don't act, will continue to repeat itself. And the worst thing about it is when you sit and you think about who's responsible and what is there, there's so many factors, not only the players, but tactically, how are they set up? How's that happening repeatedly? Not only how is it happening repeatedly, how is he allowing it to happen repeatedly and not fixing it? If you go to Parkhead and get a drubbing 3-0, but then learn from it, then great. Don't go back there in 6 months' time and repeat the exact same things.
Yes.
And have the exact same thing happen, but get worse. It's stuff like that why people are rapidly losing faith. I've questioned Van Bronckhorst a lot over, the first time I highlighted Van Bronckhorst issues was back in January. And I've continued to go down that because it's not felt right. And at times, I've tried to talk it up and, we thought it would be okay. They could go and win on Sunday and domestically and look okay, but you're papering over the cracks, in my opinion, to a situation now that's went on far too long.
Yeah. What I'm hearing a lot, Stevie, is what is Van Bronckhorst's style of play? He's been in the job almost a year now, and you hear a lot of supporters that I speak to now saying that it's boring to watch Rangers. And you've seen the mass exodus last night, and folk are actually not enthused by what they're watching on the pitch. Did you get a sense of that as well? That it's not as entertaining as what it has been in the past and what it really can be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that the style of football thing's a big thing.
Yes.
It's difficult because in a defeat or in a bad result, there is no style of play. And that's not on Van Bronckhorst. He can't stop players doing what they did last night and what they've done before, Amsterdam, etc. He's at fault for things, zonal marking and stuff, which he's changed and tried to improve. I get all that. But with regards to the style of play, it's slow, it's patient, it's possessive based. He's been unlucky in terms of Tillman's lost his form. Lawrence is a huge injury issue, injuries at the back, wing backs, etc. Nobody will sit here and tell me that James Tavernier is fit. He's not. He's miles off it. He's miles off it, Derek. He's not making bursts. He's not using his strength. He's using other players around him when he should be. Tavernier used to carry that ball up and down that right-hand side. He used to power on. We haven't seen any of that. He's not match fit. He looks like he's carrying. He's been... this pains me to say it, but he's been awful on the ball. He keeps giving it away. He doesn't look confident. There's so many wee issues like that. Tavernier's been a huge problem in these games. John Lundstrom looks miles off it in terms of where he normally is. He's got no help. And this all goes back to the bigger picture, Derek. Every single one of Rangers fans out there said 2 years ago that we need midfield reinforcements. And it's finally come home to roost. We can see it now right in front of our eyes. The moaning, the stuff that we've been worried about, one pace, too many similar players, players being too old, losing their legs, etc. That's all happening right in front of our eyes. And I'm not going to throw guys like Stephen Davis, Scott Arfield, etc. under the bus, but these guys don't have the legs anymore to do 1-2 games a week. impact players, etc. They were miles off it last night. Arfield distribution on it. He scored a lovely goal, right? I get it. On the ball, he cost us 2 or 3 goals because he got caught sleeping. Barisic, when times are hard, will completely down tools and go into a shell and stand back and watch people go by him like he did last night. There's so many factors of this team that are wrong and that are exposed and recruitment wise. It's not been good enough. The midfield is powder puff, Derek. You can literally waltz through it. John Lundstram doesn't have the pace. He needs a worker beside him, which when Jack was on it was so good that they worked together. But Ryan Jack finally, sadly, looks like injuries have caught up with him. He looks miles off the pace. He doesn't look as fit. And overall, we're not at the fitness levels that we were last year. So all that work in pre-season last season paid off. But this is Van Bronckhorst summer coming. We're looking at it, and I'm not seeing that fitness levels that I saw last year. And yes, in defeat, shoulders are down and people look beaten and stuff like that. I get that. But when people talk about no style, talk about fitness, talk about being bored, etc., there's no argument to that. I cannot sit here and reasonably say to people, I think you're overreacting, because I can't offer a counterbalance argument to it.
Yeah, good friend of the show, Denzel, gets in touch. Ajax were hammered by Napoli. Dutch managers aren't setting the heather alight across Europe. Could it be the Dutch method is past its sell-by date? I think Napoli are just... I worry for Rangers going over there. The good thing about it is Napoli have already qualified, and you just hope that they might play at a reserve side, but even that will be no doubt much better than the Rangers side that goes out there. But they need massive improvement. There's no doubt about it when they go over to Italy. Weirdly, if they get a point over there, then as long as Ajax don't get a result against Liverpool, it will come down to that last game. But it requires an immense amount of improvement for Rangers to do just that. Now, you mentioned Ross Wilson there, Stevie. Lots of comments coming in with regards to him and of course, the recruitment in the summer. Now, prior to, just after, I think, the Ajax match, or prior, I'm not quite sure, the manager said he was happy with his squad. I know there was supporters felt that he had to strengthen after that victory over PSV in Eindhoven. He never did, and he said he was happy with the squad. Now, it's clear that the squad isn't good enough for the Champions League. Now, how much does Ross Wilson have to shoulder that blame in terms of the players or the lack of players that have been brought in the summer?
Yeah. I'm not a Ross Wilson fan. I think that's been clear. Again, several times this year, people that follow Four Lads and follow the regular output from blogs will know that I've heavily questioned his role since January. January recruitment was farcical in terms of what we needed. An ego-boosting project and signing Aaron Ramsey, a waste of time. All these things didn't work, and you can say, you were excited you championed at the time, but there's a level of trust there and it didn't work, so he shoulders the blame for that. We needed, at a point in January, everybody knew what we needed. We didn't get it. It cost us. In the summer, again, right wing, we buy a left winger, try and play him on the right. Central midfield, crying out for it. Last time we spent money on a central midfielder, I think, was Glenn Kamara on 50 grand. It's unsustainable. And you spend so much money on a left back, so much money on a centre back, and wait months for them, or even still waiting for them to make an impact when it was clear what this team needed. There was vital areas of the team that needed improvement, and it's just not good enough. Ross Wilson championed Van Bronckhorst's appointment. He took the credit for it. It was his appointment. He's took the credit for this squad in terms of where they are. Such a good position, according to John Bennett and the board a couple of months ago, etc., or a couple of weeks ago, rather. This squad is miles off where it was last season.
Yeah.
In terms of recruitment, that midfield, a loan signing from Bayern Munich and a freebie was all he thought was required. We gave contracts to guys that, and I don't like saying this because I really like them and they've given us great service, but should have been let go. and that's all on his watch. And if Van Bronckhorst does fall and does lose his position, then it's absolutely pointless doing that if you keep him in a job. Ross Wilson is the, he's the next step up. He's presided over all of this, and the squad is a mess. There's so many players going out of contract next summer, including two of our biggest assets, which we're going to lose. The squad's unbalanced. It's bloated. Wages are far too high. He's oversaw all of this, every single moment of it. And when we did make cracking big sales, which he's done well in, so we'll credit him for that, because Bassey, etc. sales was unbelievable business for the club. But at that point, the chance to reinvest and set this team up again with fresh injection of players, etc. It didn't happen, and it hasn't worked. We needed a boost immediately. We haven't got it. There's too many players in there that are getting brought in that are project players, and it's his time is up. I take no, it's easy for sitting here having a rant, and it comes over as being spoiled or whatever. I appreciate that, and I appreciate people that are listening that maybe, think that this is over the top of that. But Ross Wilson's time at the club is up. And if Van Bronckhorst goes and they don't remove him, then again, it's like putting a plaster over a broken leg or whatever, but it's pointless. If you remove Van Bronckhorst, Ross Wilson has to go.
Listen, the jury is very much out, and on evidence, it certainly looks like it's not working in terms of the recruitment. This is a point made here.
Sorry, Derek.
Yep.
Like you say this again, this is really important. It's not only the recruitment, it's the position of the squad that they're in. He's had 3 years to ensure that doesn't happen the way that it's happened now. They're unbalanced. It's bloated. The wages are too high. Positions have been 100% like unbalanced. Like, instead of addressing the stuff that's right there, Derek, we all sit in the stand and have said for years about the midfield. If he can't see that, that's bigger than just the recruitment. Signings might not work, I get it. But I think he's brought in something in the region of 26 players. And you look at the list of players he's brought in, and his success rate is something maybe generously 40% of those players have worked out. That's not good enough. So, yeah, recruitment's a big picture of it, but a big part of it. But the overall squad position, injury hit centre halves, unbalanced midfield, no right side. It's all bigger picture in terms of where we are. I don't mean to cut you off, but
that's not
just saying Ross Wilson's recruitment for me isn't right. That's not my point. It's the overall squad position of how it is now. We, again, not trying to be disrespectful, look at the goalkeeper position, stuff like that. I think you've got 8 first-team players, Jack, Hollander, Morelos, Kent included, that are going to be out of contract next summer. It's not good enough. And he's planned strategically this squad of where it is, and that's his big thing. And he's been trumpeted to be doing that by the board, etc. Well, the evidence is right in front of us that his job and what he's doing, and he's not doing it to where he should be.
Yeah, but when you mentioned Kamara there, the point made by RFC 72 here, he says that we've not really brought a midfielder in for serious money since Carlos Pena. That's unacceptable. I'm racking my brains to think if we have to, but I think he's actually bang on the money there, which tells you that midfield needs refreshed. I'm like you. I thought there would be more ins and outs in the summertime in terms of that midfield. It didn't happen. Contract extensions were handed out, but there's going to have to be surgery pretty much, I think, January time. We mentioned Kent Morelos, as it stands, will be heading out of contract and free to sign for another club. But you've got so many players out of contract next summer, and I think they need to be moved on, Stevie. I think Alexa Davis, I'm not too sure if he'll continue playing at Ibrox. I'd be amazed if that was the case. Ryan Jack, of course, injured again. He's not been offered a new deal as yet. And there are others, of course, but major surgery is going to have to be carried out. Perhaps this World Cup break will come at the right time and deals can be done. But the squad needs a major overhaul, doesn't it?
It does, but I wouldn't trust Ross Wilson to be anywhere near that. And you look at, as I said, you look at the number of players he's already brought in, and you look at the position of the squad to be able to do that. So I'm not. It would be a really nice thing, a chance for a clean slate for, whoever's there, or even the manager to have more say. I don't for one second believe, Derek, that Giovanni van Bronckhorst, a Dutch manager, doesn't go and sign any Dutch players. So much influence within the City group, doesn't use his contacts down there, etc., to try and get people. I don't believe that he has the influence he should do in terms of recruitment and things like that. So, people might look at this and say that you've got issues with Ross Wilson and things, and I do. But he for me, his record doesn't stand up. And as I said, it goes back to, again, the summer is a good chance of a clean break, but not when he's presiding over it. I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, listen, the majority of comments coming in are in agreement with you, Stevie. There are some that offer a differing view. Ibrox55 in Counting says we had a goal of Champions League football. We achieved that. Get a grip, he says. And Ross, good friend of the show, says it's unrealistic to think the manager and director of football will be sacked in the back of this result.
It's not on the back of this result, though. That's the issue. It's not on the back of this result. It's on the back of repetitive things that we are seeing. And if for Rangers Football Club, Champions League football is enough, and getting spanked in every single game, performance and result-wise, is enough, then yeah, I'll get a grip. But I expect more from Rangers Football Club than just turning up and rolling over.
Yeah, but listen, it's not been a happy show to film this morning. There's no doubt about it. It was a very humbling experience at Ibrox last night. Rangers losing heavily to Liverpool in the Champions League. I think the fact that Rangers are still in the title race at the moment, Stevie, 2 points behind Celtic, very much in it. There's no doubt about it. Domestically, we know Parkhead happened, but in the main, they have had a number of, I think, 4-0 victories. I don't think that there's a managerial change, or, like you said, a director of football change off the back of a result to a world-class side like Liverpool. But I think Motherwell is huge now. Does tend to get reactions after these European matches, and he needs one big time at Fir Park. Can you see any movement, do you reckon, with regards to managerial change at all at this stage? For me, personally, I think he deserves a bit of time to let us say, to get Fir Park and try and get something out of this group of players. I don't think he's entirely wholly responsible, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, I've got to say. But he has to get a result the next game. That is absolutely imperative.
Yeah, it is, and that's a balance to everything I've said in terms of domestically. We're still in a reasonably good position, and we have said, I sat here on Tuesday, and I can't say that domestically, it hasn't been a decent start. It has, aside of Parkhead fiasco. So that's your counterbalance, right? I get that, and I accept that completely. But the issue is that the evidence that we've seen in 6 months of this team's ability to capitulate under pressure and do what they did last night is now, there's so much evidence to support that, and I cannot say that 6 wins or whatever in the league up until the World Cup break will make that great or go away, because it won't, because that problem will remain. So I don't see a change, because I don't think this board is proactive enough about anything to change that. However, I get the counterbalance that people will say that in the league and in domestically we're still there, and given what I said the other day, I cannot sit here and deny that. So I accept that point completely. My position with Giovanni van Bronckhorst is that I've seen the same things that I've seen last night too many times, and it's the manner of it. And that's my position on it. So yeah, I agree. I'd be shocked if something happened. I think the only way there will be a change if Van Bronckhorst walks away himself. I don't see the club acting. But if I was in charge of making the decisions, I would remove him.
Yeah, managers these days don't walk away from jobs. It's just not financially the right thing to do for a lot of managers. A lot of big money and payoffs and what have you. But Jimmy Duff says, "How much time, Derek? His tactics are crap." Listen, I did an interview with a Feyenoord podcaster when Van Bronckhorst was appointed, and I shudder when I read it now, because he did say that during the end of his time there that the supporters were getting bit bored with the tactics. That's where the horseshoe thing came up, where the centre back would pass to the right back and then back to the centre back to the left back, and then we're seeing this unfold at times under his watch at Rangers. Truly hope that, like you, Stevie, I like him, loved him as a player, enjoy speaking to him, a very personal guy, but at the end of the day, results matter, and he has to get a result for me on Sunday at Fir Park, and going forward, Rangers need to get back on the wagon. I think Europe we can write off. It's been a bit of a disaster, really. I mean, getting to the group stage of the Champions League was sensational. Eindhoven seems a lifetime ago now. But the cold light hearted day, Rangers are just miles off competing in that level of competition at this stage in the day. The fact they're only 2 points behind, I think, keeps them in the job at the moment, but he can't afford to lose any ground on Celtic. And I think that New Year game is going to be humongous as well. Rangers need to be within touching distance, I think. But whether the manager is in place, and there is a number of games before then, of course, before that match takes place. Okay, folks, I think that'll do us here. Thanks to everyone for getting in touch with the programme this morning. It has been a hard one to record, but I really appreciate you getting in touch. Just a reminder, you can see the little ticker below. Lots of content on the website just now. If you subscribe now, you get 2 months worth of coverage for £1. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. Stevie, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate coming on. I apologise to people if they think I was being harsh, or they think it's reactionary or whatever, but I'm hurting as much as anyone. You know, that was extremely tough to take last night. And what I see and the evidence of balance is why I'm where I am. But appreciate having us on. Let's hope for a better result on Sunday, and let's hope for a proper reaction from this group.
Yeah, the supporters certainly deserve a reaction, and let's hope we get one.
At least I'm not on tomorrow, Derek, so it made me happier.
Well, all roads lead to Fir Park. Okay, folks, thanks very much for everyone for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, I was going to say enjoy the rest of your Thursday, but hopefully it's as good as can be.